You're listening to Little Green Cheese, episode 52. Well, g'day, curd nerds. Welcome back to Little Green Cheese podcast. Today's special guest is Brendan Heffernan, and he's from Narellan Vale in New South Wales. And Brendan and I met online. We haven't met in person. We met online on the Curds and Whey Down Under Facebook group. Welcome to the show, Brendan.
Thanks very much, Gavin. It's great to be here.
Fantastic. So, mate, first question, straight out of the gate, why did you start making cheese?
I was looking for a new hobby. My wife and I went to a Camden show one year, many years ago, probably about 5 or 6 years ago. And there was a stall there where they were selling courses on how to make cheese. But unfortunately, the price was way out of my price range for the weekend. I think it was like $500 or $600 or something. I couldn't afford that. So I decided you must be able to do this stuff yourself, learn it online and get kits, stuff like that. So I went out and I looked for these things online. And I started from there, started with the basics, things like feta, halloumi, the very easy cheeses, and then started, progressing from there. So I basically just went online, started looking for information and kits, and just went from there.
So what was the best resource place or site, or were there multiple?
Oh, there were multiple. The first thing I found was the Mad Millie cheese kits. That was the best starting point for me. Very basic kits. I know a lot of people don't sort of look down on them a little bit, but for me it was a great starting point. Some great bits and pieces, all the things that you need to get started. And I've since progressed beyond them now, and I'm moving into other areas and getting supplies that they don't supply. But it was a great starting point. So it was them, then just basically researching various sites on the web, and then coming across the Facebook group Curds and Whey was also a great resource.
Yeah, they're pretty awesome. I think in the last episode I recommended a whole bunch, or it could have been the one before, a whole bunch of Facebook groups and other resources. And I find that those Facebook groups are really personal, and you can really learn a lot because there's a lot of people sharing stuff, right?
That's right.
So I got nothing. I have no issues with the Mad Millie stuff at all. In fact, we stock some of that stuff in our shops, not the kits per se, but certainly a lot of their ingredients and stuff because, they're good. They're good stuff.
Yeah,
and they're in every
nothing wrong with the ingredients.
They're in lots of shops, right? So, and where the normal average Joe who wants to start a cheese making hobby, it's readily available to get them. You don't have to go to a specialty cheese store or anything like that.
That's right. Now, look, there's nothing wrong with what they sell. It's just there's been times when I've spoken to real, true professionals in the industry at conferences and things like that I've gone to, and a lot of them sort of look down on those sorts of things. They go, oh, they're a bit basic, they oversimplify things, and yet they do. But that's their purpose. It's to get you started.
Yeah, it's a beginner's kit.
That's all they were.
Yeah, definitely, it's a beginner's kit, and they do that well, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, that really was a good grounding for me. I had some spectacular failures at first, and then I had some absolute winners, and it's been very rewarding.
Yeah. Speaking of failures, I don't know if you've seen it. The video I put up yesterday on YouTube, that was painful. To put together, not as in the creation or the publishing. It was the do I really want to show all of these disasters when I've been showing, so many successes? And the good thing is I've had such great positive feedback. So I think the failures that we make, failures as we go along, the cheese as we go along, it's all learning, because if we don't learn from our successes, because, you go, oh, well, that's all right. Why did that work out? You'll never know.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think everybody who starts making cheese always comes up with a few failures. I certainly had my my swag full of them. That's for sure.
Yeah, I watched that video and I got a bit of a chuckle out of it. And I thought, well, I've been there, done that. Maybe not to some of the cheeses you'd made I'd never tried, but it's interesting to see somebody that like yourself who's maybe not so much of an expert, but a very good cheesemaker, still has mistakes and errors, and it happens. And sometimes it's not even because you do anything wrong. It's just, it could be the milk, it could be anything. You don't really know, and that's what makes it so alluring. You really want to find out more about it. Why did this fail? Why didn't it work? Why did this work? How can I repeat that?
Yeah, they say that cheese making's part science and part art.
Yes,
So
I have to agree.
yeah, definitely. Now, you recently went along to a cheese festival. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, that was interesting. It wasn't originally. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be. It was a good day. It wasn't a wasted day out. But what I thought it was going to be was more just basically all these different cheese makers, and they're selling not only cheeses, but be able to talk to them and ask questions and learn from them. But what it ended up being more about was basically people just selling cheese, and there was also half of it was wine as well. So there wasn't that opportunity to be able to speak to the actual makers themselves. And a lot of the people who were actually manning the stalls weren't actually cheesemakers themselves. They were just employees, so they weren't really in a position to answer questions. There was one or two stalls there where the actual cheesemakers were there, and I was able to talk to them, which was great. And they did have one molecular biologist there as well, who was able to answer some of my questions, which was good. But yeah, other than that, it was a little bit of a disappointment. But still, I did get to meet Darren and had a great day out.
Yeah, Darren Aldridge, he's been on the show before, and he's, from what I've seen on his Facebook page, and though I can't remember what episode, but and I'll find it in post edit. But he's created his own cheese making kitchen. He's built a new room off the back of his house. I haven't
I've
seen it. He's
seen
in
it.
Melbourne. It looks fantastic.
I've seen it in the pictures. It looks fantastic. I wish I could do that.
Yeah,
All the stainless steel benches and everything, and you just think, wow, that'd be so easy to clean down.
yeah. Yeah, it certainly beats cleaning my kitchen every time I have to make cheese and film a video. It's got to be spotless, not for the video, but for the cheese itself, because we want to eat it later on. But I think he's
Of
he's
course.
going on to sell some of his cheeses at market. I think he did get food handling accreditation, and the kitchen got inspected and all that sort of stuff.
He
But
did.
I'm going to be talking to him in about 6 months' time. Apparently, he's broken some bones or something.
Yes, he's had a bit of a fall, but he's all right, and he's going to be getting back into it soon. So I look forward to getting him back on board and making more cheese again.
Yeah, definitely. So, what are some of the cheeses that you've actually made, and what are some of the successful ones, and what are some of the ones that turned out not so good?
Oh, probably the most successful has to be the double cream brie that I make. I seem to have that one down pat now. It just goes down a treat. It's so lovely. But I've made all sorts of cheeses, starting obviously with the feta, the halloumi, and then moved on to things like camembert, brie, and then went to the Stiltons and blue veins, and then I moved on to the harder cheeses. I tried Caerphilly and cheddar. That was a failure. That one tasted bitter for some reason.
Yeah.
But oddly enough, when you cook it, when you heat it up and it melts, it tastes wonderful. So the cooking process is doing something that is removing the bitter taste from the cheese. So to those people that are out there listening, don't necessarily think just because you try the cheese that it's a failure if it doesn't taste right. Try cooking it and see if that changes it, because it did for this cheddar. And we had it tonight on some food, and it was lovely. So failures are not necessarily the end of the world.
Yeah, definitely. I have to agree 100% there. I've made some fantastic blue cheese sauces out of some of the disasters that I've made, or mainly through neglect. You have too many cheeses in the cheese fridge, and you forget to turn one, and don't provide it with enough oxygen or something, and it all goes to custard. So
Exactly.
So out of all those, what's your favourite?
I think the best one I ever made has to be the Swiss, the Emmentaler. That was following one of your recipes, and it was just absolutely fantastic. It was bang on. The nuttiness was there. It was slightly chewy in its texture. People that I gave it to just couldn't believe that I had made that myself. And soon to open up the Jarlsberg, so we'll see what that's like in another week or so. Again, I'm expecting something similar. Seems to be doing all the right things. But Parmesan, that's another one that takes a lot of time, a lot of waiting. But when it turns out at the end, it's really satisfying.
Yeah, they're amazing. The Parmesan, homemade Parmesan, I don't know. Some people think well, the people I talk to anyway, in my work colleagues, they're just amazed at the different types of cheeses that I'm able to make. And they're quite lucky because they're my guinea pigs. When I crack it open one, I'll take a quarter in and they really like it. So
that's what I do as well. I take my cheeses into the office and people there get to try it out and they're like, wow, you really made this. And I'm like, yep,
Yeah.
I did. And that's amazing.
Yeah, it's like we've got, as Rochelle said last week, it's like we've got a superpower.
Yeah, people forget things like this. This is how it used to be done, decades ago. People didn't used to go to the supermarket and buy their bread or buy their cheese. You used to have to make it because nobody else did it for you.
That's right. There wasn't the mass industry food market that we've got today.
It's a lost art, and this is something that we're bringing back. People making their own bread, people growing their own vegetables, and people making their own cheese.
Definitely, and I do quite a few of those. I dare say you do too. So where do you store all this cheese that you make? Or how do you mature it?
I mature it all in my little cheese fridges that I have in the garage. I've got 2 small bar fridges, and I have them set anywhere between 10 and 15 degrees, depending on what I'm maturing. And I've rigged up a special thermostat system that bypasses the temperature of the fridge, and which basically turns the refrigerator off and on to maintain the temperature. Because as you know, if you use a regular fridge, the highest temperature you can get if you crank the thermostat right up would be about 9 or 10 degrees, and that's not necessarily where you want it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you want it to be higher than that. So without having to do any electrical work to the actual refrigerator themselves, I was able to rig up my own little system to make the refrigerator turn off and on as I need it to keep it at that butter zone that we like to keep it in.
Yeah. So is that unit an external plug-in unit? So you plug the fridge into that and then put a thermostat? That's similar.
Right. Yeah. So when it's not on, if you open the fridge and the light doesn't come on, you know that the thermostat hasn't been triggered.
Yeah.
And the relay's off and it's keeping the fridge off.
Yeah, I test mine every week by holding the little the probe and wait for the light to come on. Yeah, wait for the light to come on. In fact, that's the only time I test it. So once a week, I think it's good enough.
Yeah, definitely.
No, so you don't. How do you get around the humidity issue that a lot of cheesemakers seem to have when they use cheese fridges?
I just keep a little bucket of water in the bottom.
And that seems to keep. So have you got a hygrometer in there as well to tell you what the relative humidity is?
I do. Usually, it's not quite as high as I would like it because it doesn't provide quite enough humidity, but it's usually good enough for most. One of the things that I'm going to probably look at getting at some point is a little device that can spray water as a very fine mist, or some sort of humidifier or something, which I might put into a fridge. But maybe that might be for when I get a bigger fridge, because these fridges are very small.
Yeah.
And I think that anything that would add extra humidity to the air would probably be overkill. I think that the bucket of water at the bottom is working for me at this stage.
Yeah.
And if there are any cheeses that really go nuts on the humidity, what I'll do is I'll get a paper towel and wet it and put it inside the box with the cheese and then close the lid. And that will help to raise the humidity in the box a little bit.
Yeah, that definitely works. And it also helps to absorb some of the whey that comes off some of the cheeses as well.
Yes.
No, good tip, Brendan. So how do you protect your cheeses? So what do you prefer, waxing, vacuum packing, or cloth banding?
I haven't got a vac sealer, so I haven't gone down that path. And
right.
I've only recently got exposed to the cloth banding method, which you showed us a little while ago, a few months ago. So my only way is either by forming a rind on them naturally or with waxing.
Okay. So what have you had the most success with?
Waxing.
Yeah.
I find that when I try and grow rind or get a rind on the cheese, that you tend to get a lot of mold growth. And that's just part and parcel of cheese making, really. You just have to keep scraping it off, but that's what you got to do.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I also find that you've got to have the fridge quite humid if you're going to do the natural rind method. Even if you oil the rind, I found that in the early days, some of the parmesans that I was making dried out like hard as rocks. Once they've gone about to the 10-month mark, they're only good for grating. Even when you oil it, and it's because of the size. Because we're only making 1 to 2 kilo wheels of cheese, unlike in the Parmigiano Reggiano region in Italy, where they're making 40 to 80 kilo size parmesans. They don't dry out because they can
They're
have them.
huge,
Yeah,
aren't
they're
they?
massive, absolutely massive. I've never seen a full one. I've only seen a half a one.
Well, that's exactly what happened to my first Parmesan. I cut it open and it was like hard as a rock. But when you shaved some off and tasted it, the flavour was just insane. It was just everywhere. It was just got up the back of your nose, and it was just so strong, and it was beautiful.
Yeah.
We ended up grating it, and it was great on all sorts of things. I've got 2 more on the go now that are maturing. And what I've done is I took your advice and I waxed them after about 3 or 4 months, just to help keep them a little bit more moist so they don't go quite as hard and dry when I crack them open.
Yeah, it definitely works. And I just found that method through trial and error. Because I'd waxed it, I had made one and waxed it at 1 month, and I found when I cracked it at a year, there was a fair bit of seepage still, which was a bit of an issue. But when I did it at 3 months, it was dry enough to still have a little bit of moisture. You could actually shave it, you could cut it, but quite hard. But it wasn't rock hard. So yeah, I think that's probably a good middle ground.
We actually burnt the motor on our food processor in attempting to grate this cheese. It just couldn't handle it, and the motor was burnt out. I had to grate it by hand.
Yeah,
but it's all gone now, and it was delicious.
And knuckles as well, I dare say.
Yes,
yeah.
I did do a little bit of a knuckle as well.
Oh, that's fantastic. So, do you have any particular cheese books that are your go-to guides for recipes and stuff like that?
Funny enough, no, actually, that's not something that I've looked into yet, but that is something that I'm going to put onto the Christmas list. I'm definitely going to have a look to see if there are any cheese books that I'd like, and have them added to the list, because reading and following recipes, I think, is an important way to learn, not only just by watching videos. So yeah, that is definitely something I'm going to be doing soon.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a lot out there. I think I've got about 6 or 7 at the moment of just books that I've managed to get, even really old ones. I got one from the 40s, which the food handling practices are very dubious. So I think you have to take it with a grain of salt. But and bring it up to modern food handling standards, so it'll be fine. In fact, I've used a couple of recipes out of those really old books as well, and they've turned out okay. In fact, I've recently made, and I haven't put the video up for it, it's called English farmhouse cheese, which is very similar to a French coulomaise, I think that's how you pronounce it. And it's basically like camembert without the Penicillium candidum.
Oh, okay.
And they're a lot taller. They're about 2, maybe 3 inches tall. But you've got to be really persistent, and you'll see that when the video you've got to keep topping up the molds all the time. Apparently, these type of cheeses have a special mold that you have the bottom part, and then you slot a top part into it, and you fill the whole thing up. And then once it's shrunk down, it's the right size, and you can take the top bit off. So the curds shrink down as it presses down by itself. So yeah, and I couldn't find any. There were some in Europe, but they cost a fortune, so I couldn't get them over here. They're made of stainless steel. They're like a stainless steel hoop. Very strange. So coulomaise, I think that I'm pronouncing that correctly. But yeah, so that'll be out soon. But nice, easy, soft cheese. I couldn't believe how easy it was to make. It was just persistence every hour for about 6 hours, going back and filling up the little mold again. So, yeah.
Well, it sounds like my double cream breeze. That's what I end up doing. I end up with so much curd that it doesn't all fit into the molds. I have to, over at least an hour and a half to 2 hours as it sinks, to scoop a bit more curd in.
Yeah.
And then finally, when it's all gone, off they go and do their thing.
Yeah.
I know what you mean about having to go back and top it up.
Yeah, it's a pain, but it's definitely worth it in the end. I'm yet to taste it. I'm going to film it after the podcast interview.
Oh,
so
fantastic.
it should be nice, and I'll put photos up.
Keep a lookout for that.
Yeah, definitely. So where do you source your equipment? Locally or internationally?
My cheese making
Yes,
equipment.
sorry, yeah.
Well, all of it, most of my equipment I've got through purchasing the various Mad Millie kits, the introductory kit, the artisan kit, and the specialty kits. Once I got those, I just started buying other equipment from other suppliers. Yourself has been one of the. I mainly get my cultures and things like that from you, but there has been other places where I've got more molds.
Yeah.
Like I only had two of the round ones, and I like to make double quantity, so I got four of those. Same with the feta baskets. I like to had four of those, so I bought some more of those. So,
Mm.
but basically, to go back to the supplier for those, but it's mainly just consumables that I'm using now.
Yeah, I find
The
that
only
too.
other thing that I've got is I now use digital thermometers. I know that you use the analog ones. I find them to be a bit imprecise for me, and I like to be able to see, when I'm raising the temperature of something over a 30-minute period. I like to see it going up by points of a degree
Right.
instead of whole degrees, because sometimes it can race away on you,
Mm.
even if you're using a double boiler. And if you're only going up by 3 degrees over 30 minutes, you want to make sure that it is actually crawling up very slowly. So I find digital thermometers are good for that. So I normally get them from overseas suppliers because they're nothing special. Somewhere like China or something like that, pick up
Yeah.
one for $10. But yeah, for other things like that, all the other things like the curd cutter that I've got, the spoons, all of that has come in the kit.
Yeah.
The waxing bowls, the muslin cloths, all that sort of stuff. Although I use chucks now as my muslin cloth now. I don't worry about using cheesecloths anymore. You can just use them and throw them away.
Do you use a pH meter or anything like that? Have you
I
gone down that
don't, but
track
that's
yet?
another thing that I'm looking at getting. I'm going to get myself a pH meter so I can start being a bit more precise with, the acidity levels and things like that as things are going along in the cheese making process. But yeah, I have looked at that, and that's going to be another device that goes on the list of things to buy.
Yeah. I've never used one.
No, I know.
And
Yeah, you mentioned that,
yeah,
and
I
it was Darren that actually suggested. He says you should get a pH meter so you get some cheese making. I thought, yeah, I'll have a look into that. They're not that expensive. They're only about $30 for a reasonably priced one that has a thermometer built into it as well. So, I'm going to get one and start using it and see what the differences is in pH levels when I'm making the same
yeah.
types of cheese to see what's going on.
I think I may have to get one because I can't master some of the pasta filata, the stretchy curd ones, because
Mm.
they have to be at pH of 5.4 before you can stretch the curd. Because I can never guess. And there's this little hot water bowl test you can do, but I find it quite hit and miss. So that's why I haven't branched out and made anything like provolone or traditional mozzarella or anything like that. There's quite a few, and Caciocavallo is another one, which is look like two big mozzarellas, and they string them together and put them over a pole. So I haven't gone down that path yet, so I'll have to invest. When you find the link, mate, send it through. If you can get
For
it
a
cheaper,
pH meter,
yes, please.
I'll let you know when I find one.
Lovely, lovely. All right, cool. So, what words of encouragement do you have for newbie curd nerds, people that haven't had a go yet, sitting on the fence? What would you give them, and what tips?
Oh, give it a go. Don't give up when things go wrong. You would not believe the amount of milk I have poured down the sink because things have gone wrong. And usually it's because I wasn't reading the recipe properly or wasn't following them properly or thought I knew better. Just read what's in front of you, follow it exactly, and if it doesn't work, just keep trying, because eventually you'll hit it and you'll go, wow, I can't believe I finally done it, and you'll just be spurred on from there. Talk to other people that do it. If possible, even somebody that is already doing it, see if you can go and visit and watch them and help them make some cheese and learn that way. I actually had somebody who's a member of the Kurds and Way Down Under group reach out to the team and say, is there anyone in the local area that makes cheese? I'd like to learn. I put my hand up. She only lives about 20 minutes away. She came over a few weeks ago to my place,
Yeah,
and we met for the first time, and we made halloumi and feta in one day.
fantastic.
If I had somebody that had done that for me, I would have poured a lot less milk down the sink because I was able to impart all the knowledge that I've learned over the years to her so that she won't make those same mistakes.
Yeah,
So Yeah, don't give up. Keep trying. It's read the recipes. Steer away from homogenized milk, which I didn't when I first started. I thought I knew better,
Mm.
and that's why I had all these failures. Get it as fresh as milk as you can, and give it a go.
Yeah, that's exactly the same mistakes I was making. I used homogenized milk and thought that calcium chloride was the wonder drug that made everything better.
Yep,
It
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 doesn't.
doesn't. It really doesn't. But sometimes it can be really difficult to find a source of unhomogenized or non-homogenized milk because a lot of city folk don't have access to that sort of stuff. I know in the Australian market, there's a lot more suppliers putting out non-homogenized milk, which is great for cheesemakers. But it was really hard to find even a year ago. Even a year ago.
I know. When I first started, the only milk that I could get was the Paul's unhomogenized milk in it was organic or unhomogenized milk in the 1 litre cardboard container, and it was so expensive. I was spending nearly $20 to buy 4 litres of milk,
Yeah. Yeah.
which was crazy. But I did it because that's the sort of milk I needed to use. Fortunately, now Woolworths is selling a farmer's own brand of unhomogenized milk in both 2 and 3 litre bottles. And because of the economies of scale they're using with that, they're able to sell it for almost as much as you buy homogenized milk for, which is making cheese making for me far more affordable
Mm.
and easier to do. Well, I'm not hunting around for it. Sometimes I go to 2 or 3 different supermarkets trying to find unhomogenized milk. Now I can pretty much get it whenever I want. Just go to Woolies and it's there. So to those that are looking for unhomogenized milk, just keep trying, look around, you'll find it. It's just, and once you find it, talk to the manager and say to them, look, I really use a lot of this. I know I'm only one person, but if you can do your best to keep your store stocked with unhomogenized milk, I'll certainly be a customer of it.
Mm.
And that's what I did with the Woolies down there, and they've got loads of it. I'm not claiming that it's me that's caused that to happen, but let them know, and at least they'll be able to make sure that they talk to their buyers and try and help you out.
Yeah. So, and that's what I found recently as well, because I was buying Demeter's biodynamic milk, which was nearly $6 for 2 litres, which was and you need like 10 litres of milk or 8 litres of milk to make a decent cheese,
Mm.
and it was costing me like $32 for a cheese. However, you knew it was biodynamic cheese by the time you finished, and I had to look around for biodynamic cheeses, and for 100 grams it was nearly $12. I couldn't believe it. So I was making, nearly 2 kilos worth of cheese. It was nearly worth $100 by the time I finished with it. But yeah,
Wow.
couldn't sell it.
No,
But that's, I suppose you get what you pay for when it comes to milk, I suppose.
you do, and I've seen the end result of that even with the milk that I'm buying now. Sometimes you get milk that's only got, a week of use by left on it, and other days you get it and it's like it was only milk 2 days ago.
Mm.
And you can tell the difference when you're working with a fresher milk.
Yeah.
And in case anyone's wondering, in Australia, I don't know about overseas, but in Australia they stamp the milk with a use-by date of 2 weeks beyond the date at which it was milked. So if you want to know when the milk was milked, that's how you can work it out.
Mm. Oh, that's a good tip. I didn't know that one. I just try
Yeah,
and get it so it doesn't have the thick cream on the top, that I can still mix it up without having to
yeah.
whisk it into the milk, which is always a bit of a hassle. But
No,
it
I
seems to work
spoke to
right.
the milk board or some milk authority in Australia because I was trying to get some more information, and I found out from them, that when the cow is milked, they stamp 2 weeks from that day forward as the expiry date.
Yeah, and that's for pasteurised milk, right? Because
I think that's for any.
yeah, well, down here in Victoria, we can't buy raw milk on the market.
Oh, yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, that's what I meant. Yeah, pasteurised milk. Yes, that's right.
So, in New South Wales, can you buy raw milk in
You
cartons?
you cannot. You can only buy it as bath milk, I think.
Yeah, but it doesn't have a bittering agent added like it does down
I
here.
don't know. I've never tried it.
All right.
I'm not willing to go down that path.
Yeah.
Mind you, I have once made milk with raw milk from a cow. It turned out wonderful, but I haven't bought any from the supermarket.
So you were given that milk.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because you can't buy it.
And the good thing is usually you know the source and the person,
Yes,
and they're clean.
it was from a farmer,
Yeah.
like a proper farmer down the south coast. And it was very fresh. Got access to it straight away.
Yeah.
And it was great. So if you can get access to fresh raw milk, do that as well. Don't necessarily rely on what you can buy.
Yeah, definitely. And that's great words of advice. Now, Brendan, what's some of the best places for people to contact you on social media if they want to ask you any questions?
Well, they can look for me on the Curds and Whey group on Facebook.
Yep.
I'm obviously also on Facebook. Yeah, that's the only places really. Just on Facebook, and that's it.
All right, no drama. Thanks, Brendan. Mate, it's been a pleasure talking to you and learning about how you make cheese there at home. And thanks for spending some time with us on the Little Green Cheese podcast.
No worries. Thanks for having me on the show, Gavin.
No problems at all, mate. Thanks very much. Well, that was a great interview. I had a good time talking to Brendan and getting a different perspective on cheese making and how to begin cheese making at home. Well, I think that's home time. For upcoming workshop dates and recipes, you can find those all at littlegreencheese.com, including my ebook, Keep Calm and Make Cheese, A Beginner's Guide to Cheese Making at Home. You can also find all of my video tutorials over on YouTube. Just look for cheeseman.tv and you will find over 70 video tutorials all about cheese making, including the one that Brendan and I were talking about called When Cheese Fails. Very exciting stuff. Thanks for listening, Curd Nerds, and stay tuned for the next episode of Little Green Cheese Podcast. I'd like to give a shout out to a new Patreon. Thank you very much to Chill Bill for pledging some money towards the podcast and YouTube video channel.